Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've just been to see The Secret Agent. This is Brazilian and it's a historical political thriller written and directed by Kleber Mendonça Filho, whose last film, Bacurau, we saw and really liked.
Yes.
A kind of weird western with this kind of shootout. It's really interesting.
Mm.
This is also really interesting, also really long. This is like the best part of 3 hours. It's 2 hours 40. Yeah. It's a long one. And for a while, it wasn't really holding my interest. And then after about the halfway mark, I thought it picked up.
Oh, I've held my interest throughout.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's been nominated at the upcoming Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Actor for Wagner Moura, who I think also won at Cannes, Best Casting and Best International Feature Film.
Mm.
So it's getting a lot of recognition. We saw this on Monday night at 7 p.m. in a very full second screen at the Mockingbird, probably half full, but it's more than we're used to seeing in there, I think.
Yeah, definitely on a Monday night.
Yeah. It really reminds me in some respect of The Passenger. Remember the Antonioni film that we saw a few years ago? It has a similar kind of pace, I think, a similar focus on one man who you don't know very much about for a long time. And in that film, I think throughout really The Passenger, if I recall correctly, you don't really know a lot about him. You do learn about your main character here eventually. But a similar pace, a similar setting, and it really nails the 70s aesthetic it's going for. It's set in 1977 in Brazil during the dictatorship, and we follow a man who, it would already be a spoiler to say what he is, so I guess we will say, but we don't know this for a long time. He is essentially a political enemy of someone, but it's not insofar as, he's like a terrorist or freedom fighter. He's a university professor who had a disagreement with someone who has political connections, really. It kind of comes down to that,
Completely. And actually, I thought, for me, from the opening scene, it just reminded me so much of what fascism is like, right? So, kind of in the opening scene, all you see is a guy goes to get gas, right? And it seems a bit surreal, but actually it feels perfectly real because there's a corpse, right? And it hasn't been picked up, and it's rotting, and it stinks. And it's because the police is too inefficient and disorganized, to come and collect the corpse. And on the other hand, this guy goes to pick up gas, the police see him, right? And, he becomes kind of a mark, a shakedown, So kind of basically the police are not really interested in doing their job. They're just interested in getting as much money as they can out of him, right? And they end up really only getting a pack of cigarettes because the guy's too smart, right? Yeah,
he says, I just spent all my money. I've been traveling for 3 days. I can give you my cigarettes.
Yes.
And that's all they get away with. But
that's right. And we know that's not true, right? And likewise, in the opening scene, people coming from Carnival go to get gas. They see the police there and they go right out. Yeah, it's kind of, they know what the score is, right?
I'm not getting involved here.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a rhyme with that and the revelation of why this man is being hunted down, right? Because all that happened is his wife told off these industrialists. That's all. Yeah. 'Cause that's the only reason. Right, and again, it goes down, to me, kind of, it really evoked that sense of, what living in Spain during Franco was like. Right, there's all, so the industrialist takes against the professor only because he's got long hair. And it really reminded me of that in Spain, right? Like, in Spain, the police would, like, just, beat the shit out of someone just because they had wrong haircut, right? Because they were too hippie or something, right? Yeah. And that was, I thought, evoked really well here. So it becomes a lawless place because these rich industrialists who basically have the politicians in their pockets can do everything they want. And in this case, they basically have the woman killed and they get a contract out on the guy. And it's really just because they've been offended, right?
I don't even think we hear anything about a politician in this film. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what we hear is we have the business people, and we have the police who are super corrupt.
Yeah.
If there's any talk of the mayor, the president, it's maybe really in the background.
No, but it's really implied, right? Because this is a public university. This guy comes to shut it down.
Yeah.
So, because he's got a financial interest in it. So, obviously, the reason why this industrialist can shut this university down is because he's connected.
But I think there is something in the fact that, like, there is so little kind of explicit mention of politics that it goes to show just how little that really matters. You can just be your capitalist, industrialist figure and make your way into universities and shut them down. And it's like there isn't any politics involved. You can just come in.
Yeah, the film is full of politics, though, and it does it in an absolutely kind of brilliant way. To me, it's like was it One Day After Another?
Yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson.
One Battle After Another. One Battle After Another. It really reminded me of that in a completely different way, but in the way that it is kind of politically engaged, that it does kind of talk about networks of resistance. Yeah, that it shows a very kind of corrupt fascist system at work. I think Secret Agent is better about showing how life goes on, how people live amidst that with kind of humor and joy and resistance, right? Even though, kind of there's a lot of deaths. And it also shows the different effects that politics have on people. If you're not directly attacked, then it's almost like it isn't happening, even though it's happening right in front of your face. Something that, again, I think kind of has connotations with, like, ICE, and so on in the States today. Obviously, the film is set during the period of the military dictatorship, in Brazil.
Which lasted from the 60s to the 80s for about 20 years.
Yes. And I found it so deeply moving by the end. Right. It really did.
What moved you?
So the scene with the archivist going to talk to the son,
who is now a grown man. So we have this framing device where we end up in the present day. The son, who was like 9, 10 at the time, is now a grown man, a doctor, and this young girl has been going through these archives, transcribing them, and goes to meet him.
So it moved me because all these things come to the fore. The work of archivists, the work of individuals making an effort, and going the extra step to even get in touch with the person for whom this archive should have meaning. The son's reluctance to know more, than he already does. He's got his view of the past, and you'd think he'd be over the moon to hear his father's voice, right? But it's not played that way. It's the opposite. It's like a hesitancy to deal with the past, to know the past, right? So you have like kind of this tension between, archivists making the past alive, kind of bringing truth to light in a way, right? And, the son being too scared to go into those areas, or too, hesitant. And I think the film plays with that. So kind of at every moment I thought, surely he'll want to hear his father's voice. Because he says, I don't remember anything about my father. And yet that doesn't happen, right? Like kind of, he puts it in his pocket. You have this sense that what used to be a cinema is now a blood bank, right? Things change. In this case, things change for the better, right? But it's a kind of a better that's taken for granted. That kind of, partly because of people's unwillingness to engage with the past, really.
It mirrors what the dad character, who, the most of the film is set in the 1970s. And the dad character, while he's a kind of distant refugee, is placed where he wants to be, which is in the department building that issues ID cards. And the reason he wants to work there, sort of undercover with an assumed name and so on, is so that he can search for his mother's ID card. Didn't know very much about his mum. His mum was, we eventually learn his mum was young. I think indigenous is what we're essentially told. Indigenous, slept with the dad at young. They were both young. They're 17 and 14. I don't think it's implied that it was. Well, maybe it is.
I think it is implied, actually. So the implication, because they basically told you, she was so poor that she was basically a domestic slave. Right? And it basically, the son of the house clearly felt he had a right to her.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, so I think there is a very, again, because everything is so humorously or gently or underplayed in the way that it's dramatized, right? But it is there, and it's part of a pattern, really. I first noticed it in that bit, so to say that refugees is the term that the film uses, so it's not that it's incorrect, but in English it has different connotations. I mean, these are people who are in hiding.
Yes. Yeah. And waiting for passports and ways out of the country.
And they're hiding for all different kinds of reasons, right? And the first one that I believe we're told about is about this young boy whose family persecuted him because he wasn't a real man. And then the film goes, and you see him, he is a man, but he's not the kind of man that his family wanted to be. Exactly. So he's had to kind of leave, and he's with us. And you get that with gay people. The whole incident with the wife and that industrialist in the bar, talks about, like, you know, horrible sexism.
And classism. And classism. Lower classes. Right?
Yeah. Questions of race are alluded. How much does it cost to kill a white man as opposed to how much does it cost to kill a black man? Yeah, kind of one is less expensive, and you can guess which one. Yeah. Right? Because it seemed to matter less. So, black lives don't matter in Brazil. As much as white, to use that terminology. So it covers almost all of those issues, in ways that don't feel forced. The thing about, you know, this corrupt chief of police loves this guy because he was a German soldier, not noticing that actually, you know, he was a German Jew who'd been tortured by the Nazis. Exactly. Right? Yeah. So all of these things are in the film, and they're really kind of a critique of fascism. Really, and I think the film does do something with, and I think there's that phrase of Wagner Moura at the end about knowing things about the past. There's something about that he says, but which I now can't remember very well.
Just to quickly finish the point I was making about the mirroring of. Sorry. No, that's right. The mirroring of that last scene and his reluctance to. Listen to his dad's voice and listen to everything that's in those archives and learn all this stuff. The mirroring is because his dad, back in the 1970s, got himself placed in the ID place so he could look for his mum's ID card. It's all about, like, I need proof that she was. I need to have one document of hers. I need to prove that she was alive. The attitude is completely different, and obviously the conditions in which they're living are completely different. These are essentially two people who didn't know their parents, and one of them sees it one way and the other sees it very differently.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting also because it's a mother and the father, so there are those things as well. I think it's an amazing film. I mean, I think, you know, the whole opening sequence really kind of, you know, sets the tone for it. It's kind of, you know, the corruption is like kind of right in your face. It's played for humor. It's kind of sly, funky, underground. Yeah. I love the way that the film evokes the 70s. And obviously, I'm sure it has like particular resonances for Brazilians and for people of the era. But, you know, even myself, who grew up in Montreal in the 70s, you know, like references to The Omen and King Kong and Jaws. I mean, I remember that exact period, the posters of Nadia Comaneci that you see.
And for someone who is born in the 1980s and never lived through the 70s and knows it through images, cinematically, it evokes the style of the time.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it looks like it was shot in the 1970s, and it's doing a lot of work to do that. And it also it plays on, you know, the way the zoom lenses were used back then, a crash scene on one thing or another, and it does that. You know, it does kind of little reframings. The way the camera is used, really subtly and very beautifully evokes the way that films looked back then, which is really nice. Because then once you wind up in the modern day, and I think I don't know about you. It took me a second to realise we were in the modern day. You suddenly realise, you know, I heard the monitor in the background, the earbuds these girls are wearing. Okay, suddenly we're in this different space.
The clue, I think the first shift, because I think this is the way the film is so beautiful, right? Because, you know, it is constantly moving from the past to the present. The first clue for me was that you see an iPhone, or maybe it's not an iPhone, but yeah, you see a digital phone screen, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Then I'm having to, like, readjust.
Yeah.
Okay,
so then that's what made me realize, well, they have a phone and they're listening, you know, to tapes, And then the film kind of goes backwards and forwards like that, whilst also kind of very interestingly using cross-cutting, right?
Yeah.
So, which kind of builds suspense, and you're moving from one area of action to another happening simultaneously, right? So I thought all of those different narrative devices were so incredible.
It was very clever, actually, and very subtle, and you don't really notice it until you pick it up. But yeah, it's that cross-cutting between the conversation that's happening at the time that is being recorded, and we see the tape recorder going, and then the modern day, so a conversation is happening, and this is where about an hour and change into the film. I think it's close to an hour and 20 minutes. I do think the first half of the film doesn't earn it.
I didn't. I was completely absorbed.
But I have trouble with it. But once we start to learn about the main character, and he gives this interview with the kind of the network that's helping him. We have him talking about the industrialist with whom he has an issue, and he stops the tape and says, "I would kill this guy with a hammer. I'm not violent, but I'd kill this guy." Then he restarts the tape, and the woman says, "I need to go and use the loo." And then we cut to the modern day where they obviously haven't heard this 20 seconds that wasn't recorded and don't quite get it, and then come back, and it's really naturally done. The way that's edited, the way your attention is directed is really, really beautiful. It's very subtle, and it's very, and you don't question it at all. You get it. It's very good at that. It's really beautifully felt filmmaking.
Yes.
I mean, there are points where it gets super surreal, but not many. But so we start when Wagner Moura arrives at the residence where the dissidents are housed. There's this cat with kind of two faces. It's obviously had some genetic issue that or kind of developmental issue that means that it has sort of two noses, three eyes, and it's getting on. It's perfectly happy. We don't see anything more of this, right? It's just this weirdness, and it deserves to live here just like anyone else. It was going to be put down, but we kept it around. A little later on, in fact, much later on in the film, there's this whole story about a leg that was found in the belly of a shark.
Yes.
Which we never really learn anything about, but it's clearly has it's someone who was dumped.
Yes, though it connects. I think for me everything in the film connects, right? So I didn't know this until I read it, in Wikipedia, but ostensibly Recife, where the film is set, is a place where there are a lot of shark attacks.
Right.
And during the dictatorships, these shark attacks were a way of bringing in critiques of homophobia and sexism and rapes and police brutality and so on, right? Yes.
How so?
Well, because, they talk about a shark attack and kind of build into the story, kind of two gay men.
The people who were attacked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it's used in the film. So like I say, so the first surreal thing they mention is the cat, and then much later, this leg, which we have followed the story of, I suppose.
The leg reappears throughout the film.
And comes to life. So it's been told in the newspaper, or it's been used in the newspaper as the hairy leg. The hairy leg is hunting people, it's kicking people, it's killing them. And, the idea that this would be like an urban myth is fair, but the idea that the newspaper is selling it as the reason that these people are dead is kind of baffling. And I think it speaks to what you're talking about, which is this is covering up political and police corruption.
Well, because it's also what we're told. I mean, basically, the police is using carnival as a means of getting rid of people that they want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Right? And, we're told at one point in the film when the two contract killers, go for a ride.
Yeah.
Who's in the back? And they say, some rapists and some whatever. So, they're just basically kind of, killing people.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And they know that the two guys they're picking up, they're friends.
Yeah.
They're chatting away, and then they go, someone goes, "Are you here on a mission?" And the police chief goes, "We're not talking about that. Let's not confuse work and friendship." So they know they're here to kill someone.
Yeah.
They know they're doing something, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We're giving them a ride in the police van with the chief of police having a joyride.
That's right.
Yeah.
So basically, when we first hear about the shark, the reason they're interested in that shark leg is because it's proof of a killing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it will connect to them, right? The reason why they then go into the morgue and pay someone off is, so they replace a cow's leg with that leg because that leg is evidence of what they're doing.
And they take it away and dump it back in the river.
So all of those motifs tie in together, right?
And so the way the film expresses it, though, is with this surreal sequence that's, animated, partially animated, the leg is animated, as though the story of the hairy leg somehow coming to life and kicking gay people to death were true. So like, it has a humorous element. It's a very weird thing to see, especially having, this is a long time into the film and suddenly this very weird thing is happening we haven't seen a lot of. Obviously we're supposed to not treat it as true, and then that's intercut itself, that's cross-cut with the Angolan woman. So there's an Angolan couple who are also refugees, and they're reading the story and laughing. Oh, imagine if this were true. How could this be true? They seem to respond to it as though they believe like maybe it could be true, but they're also laughing at the absurdity of it. But the idea is that these political
the idea is that
and corrupt
that
murders.
Gay couple who is named and given the ages and you're told their jobs, were really killed.
Yeah.
Not by a shark, unless, you
Or a leg.
think that the shark is really the police. The police are the sharks, right?
Yeah.
Or this kind of, this whole system is full of sharks, right? I was really also fascinated in the levels of corruption, right? So we see the police shake down Wagner Moura just for whatever they can, and ends up just being cigarettes at the beginning, but then you see that those small levels of corruption that nonetheless have such terrible consequences, so everyone's on the take. The guy at the morgue is on the take, the cinema projectionist is on the take, right? And he's clearly taking money and either completely unaware or completely uncaring that his elderly colleague might be killed, right? And actually, that was something that was on my mind, that this poor old man is going to get killed any moment now.
Yeah.
And then you realize that they're just using him to lead to, the protagonist.
Yeah.
But until then, I thought they were really going to kill him, right? And the
Seemed
idea,
like he was in trouble. Yeah.
and the idea that his colleague would sell him out, I thought that was kind of,
Well, does he? I mean, when he's on the phone, he doesn't. He's suspicious of the person calling, and when he says, "Does so and so work here? Is this his full name?" He goes, "I can't help you with that." That has given it away. I mean, the guy basically.
But then
just reads it in him, but...
Well, the film is very clever, because the next time you see that projectionist, he's counting money. Right? So obviously that tells you something. Right? And then, after he gives the name, he collects more money. Yeah? So, but actually, I thought that was wonderful, that the way that he was kind of reintroduced was through counting money, because you already know it's taken place. And I thought that was kind of... one of the things that the film is so clever with, this shorthand way of telling you things. The
hitmen as well. So the pair of hitmen who are hired by the industrialist to kill Wagner Moura negotiate 60,000. What is the currency?
Reales, I think.
Cruzeiro?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So they negotiate 60,000, and they say, "I want this done properly. I want this blah blah blah. I need a hole in his face. I need it to look right." And what they do is they go find someone who's much lower class, who is dark-skinned. I think it's important. Like, he's like dark-skinned, kind of looks pretty vagrant, though he does have a job, and go, "We'll give you $4,000." Well, they want to give him two. So like from 60 grand down to $4,000, they're keeping a huge amount of profit for doing fuck all.
Yes.
Everyone is, like you say, on the take. Everyone has someone working for them, or some relationship. There's so many people in this film who, in positions of power, have their kids with them.
Yes.
Here's my son. Here's my guy who's like a son to me. The police chief. So just going around, like, are they cops? I don't think they're in the force, but they're just with their dad all the time.
Yes.
Well,
they probably are in the force because their dad got them in.
Yeah.
Right.
Same with the industrialist, him and his son.
Yes.
He's just always there.
Yes.
Whereas, of course, the main character, Wagner Moura character, his whole relationship is with his son. He could leave probably a lot quicker if it weren't for the fact that he wants to go and get his son. It's all about his family. The relationship with his son is a caring, a real one, and not one of, a kind of passing on power, consolidating power. It's all that kind of thing with the corrupt side.
It's got a kind of that mafia side, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting that you see it the same in the police than you see it in the gangsters. Though, interestingly, you're told that the hitman killed his stepson's mother. Right. So kind of there's a level of just ruthlessness, criminality. Life is not worth much in these places, right? If you're not like hyper connected. And the level of corruption is such that even you're told the resistance movement is actually being funded by one of the biggest gangsters who are at the very top of government. So it's the dissident daughter of the worst criminals that is actually funding what resistance we see in the film. So again, that speaks of just kind of levels of corruption that are woven into the very fabric of society at every level.
It's like how Jeff Bezos split up from his wife. And his wife got half his money and is giving it all to charity.
Well, it's not quite the same thing. But anyway, I thought it reminded me so much of Hector Babenco, the Brazilian director. He did this film called Pichote, which stars young criminals, like really young, 8 and over, right? And again, it's a film that just shows the levels of corruption, that's kind of insidious, really, to the whole culture. I mean, basically, one of the plot points of the film is that, these kids are sent to this reformatory, and the guys who run the reformatory let the kids out at night, so they can commit crime, and then kind of bring them back to prison, in the day, because, if you're under a certain age, you can't get a criminal, you can't be sent to jail, it's just... although this reformatory is seen as a brutal jail, if you're under a certain age, you're not sentenced to the same thing as if you're an adult. So it reminded me very much of that. It's a very, cinephile movie. So Jaws, The Omen, there is a kind of an early Scorsese feel to it. Though, with all of that, I think what I liked about it and found unusual is it is a kind of humor and maybe even joyfulness, right? That I thought, this is so, I don't know, I was going to say Brazilian, but, so it starts off with that black humorous scene with a corpse in the petrol station, right? And then the next thing you go is, he goes to greet this old lady, and initially I thought it's his grandmother or something, right? And the old lady introduces him to the whole community, and she knows all their names, and they all greet her. You get a sense of kind of like real community and joy, and they're drinking at Carnival. He's offered a drink, so there's this real kind of conviviality, right, and kind of community and jokes, right, that you don't see, for example, in One Battle After Another, right? Like, in those scenes,
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I mean,
I mean, maybe it's because we're looking at the past in one film and maybe the future in the other. Yes. I mean, there is a massive sense of humour about One Battle After Another, and it builds jokes out of it. It's a very funny film.
But I do see what you're saying about the interactions between people they're not focusing on the joy these people can experience. Although I think, you've got sort of the resistance part, haven't you, or the past part, I suppose, of One Battle After Another, which is the early part of the
I suppose you can argue that the Benicio del Toro character...
Well, that's where I was going.
Has a bit of that.
He certainly has a bit of that. And he because when he gets hold of Leonardo DiCaprio, knows what he needs to do with him and so on, he's able to handle it with humour and lightness. And... because DiCaprio is kind of all over the place and he's frantic and everything. And Del Toro has this calming presence about him. One of the things that gives him that calming presence is an ability to deal with things with humour.
Sure.
But I know what you mean. The main trouble that I had with this film is that I thought I wanted it to be more explicit about the story it was telling early on. I thought I do appreciate the tone that it's setting and the way of life that it's showing us, but it did feel long. It didn't feel like it earned the time it was taking to tell the early part of its story and I wanted it to be more explicit about what it was telling us, to the point where when it gets to that interview scene, which, like I say, is about halfway through this 2 hour 40-minute film, and we actually hear this guy's story, I'm thinking, finally it's perking up. You know, I didn't need to know this right at the start, but I felt I needed to know it earlier, and the film could have got away with telling me this earlier.
I didn't have any problems with it at all, and for me the time flew by. I didn't, you know, I wasn't conscious of it, and it had been one of my biggest fears about the film, right?
So it's so long.
Yeah, that it was so long, and you know, we were seeing not a late screening, but kind of, it is a Monday. 7 o'clock screening, which I thought the film would probably start at like 7:20 or 7:30, and then it's 2 hours, and I don't know how many.
Yeah, exactly. It started at 7:20, and we got out at 10. So
okay, there you go. Right, so that's how long it was. So long, right? But I didn't experience it that way. Actually, I thought everything kind of, you know, was interesting. It's a film that has a lot of characters, right? That kind of, you know, tells a lot of stories. And it's also the story of a culture, right? And like a whole culture, really, you know. So, and you get that sense. And it's also about the connection of the past to the present. So it does a lot in that time in a way that I thought was like really rich and really kind of textured, and something that was both really serious, but also very playful with it.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's a really great film.
There's one more thing which is on my mind, which is, what do we make of Wagner Moura's performance? So he won at Cannes, Best Actor in a Drama. He's nominated for Best Actor at the Academy Awards. I didn't see in his performance what I think is being recognised by others.
I
found him a little blank, honestly. In fact, the most I liked him was when he was playing his son as a grey man at the end. I thought he actually had the most to do there, or at least did the most with what he was given.
I think that's the show-stopping piece, right? You know, because you can see, that it's the same actor, but actually, facially, in terms of his walk, in terms of his facial gestures, it was all completely different. It's a different person.
It is, yeah.
You know, so I thought that was the show-stopping moment. Yeah, the thing that you usually get awards for, wrongly. Yeah, because it's showy. I think, right? You're meant to look at the contrast. But I thought he was just great at, you know, kind of being someone who evokes, kind of being a scientist and a hippie, right? And someone who is sexy, who's a sexual person. I thought, for example, the whole exchange with the father-in-law, you know, that you play around at the beginning of your marriage with my daughter, right? And that whole thing, you know very clearly that we loved each other very much, which you feel is true. But then kind of you also get a sense that he did play around with it, you know, and all of that is told without dialogue, right? So I thought there were moments of that where he just feels so true, you know. And I think that's kind of really the test, that you feel it's true across a variety of situations, right? So I thought he was great.
I mean, I felt that he lacked a certain charisma.
Oh no!
That I thought I wanted.
My God,
no.
Well, we
again,
disagree.
Another area where we disagree. I felt that was lacking. I would say there is something magnetic about him. I think it's his look and his stance and the way he fits the era that he's evoking. But there was something I felt lacking. But I think you're right. What you say about the truth that you feel in the character he portrays, and I think he's also good at showing you a variety of emotional states.
Yes.
Subtly.
Yes.
Because there's a difference between when he's being chased, or when he's nervous for another reason, or when he gets het up and angry in that particular scene with the industrialists where they have the row.
I mean, I thought he was amazing, because think of how someone else would have played the scene that you described, where they turn the tape recorder off and say, "I'm not a violent man, but if I had a hammer, I mean, someone could have turned that into a big shouty showpiece, right?
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, well, he doesn't play it that way at all, right? Like, you know, I mean, you get the sense that he is kind of not a violent man, yeah, and yet also he doesn't need to shout or show aggression for you to believe that he actually would take a hammer to the sky, right?
Yeah.
So I thought all of those. I thought he was brilliant, but the seal on the deal, so to speak, was then when he plays his son. That is like the, you know, the best actor award moment is the contrast.
I would say I don't see that as showy as you describe. I mean, I did. I also felt the truth of that character. And
sure.
And I didn't.
But you know, you feel the truth of the character, but you also think it is a showstopper, right? Like, yeah, because he's playing his son. It's a different character. He's playing two characters in a film, and actually, it's a real test of an actor's skill, because obviously, it has to show both a connection, that he's the son, but also that he's a different person, right?
I do get what you're saying.
And there was a thing about the roundness of the face. I mean, it took me a while, to realize it was him, because the eyes were obviously the same. But then I thought, have they found an actor with a very similar look? I mean, it didn't take me very long.
Yeah.
But initially, because his face was rounder. Yeah.
You see, the question I immediately had when I saw him was I immediately recognised him and went, oh, so has he grown up? Is this him older now? Because then how does it add up? Are we in the year 2000 rather than 2024? I guess that would add up. But so then I'm going, and then he takes the name Fernando. Well, has he taken his son's name somehow? Is that what's kept him alive? But no, okay, it's revealed. It becomes clear he is playing his son here.
Yeah, I must say I also had that moment. So the two things are not necessarily contradictory, really, because basically you're shown a newspaper picture of the father being assassinated on the street. You see his bloody corpse in the newspaper, and then in the first scene with the son, you do think, oh, is this something where the death was faked and they got him a new identity? And
because you're shown that photo relatively fleetingly, or at least you're not given a terrific look at it, and it looks like the hitman who wound up dead on the floor of the barbershop. And I thought, oh, has he somehow found the opportunity to pretend that was him dead and now he's moved? But obviously we find out none of that is the case. He has died and this is his son. But the film does, whether intentionally or not, you do question those things.
Yes. And I think that's one of the ways that the film works, because, the film is subtle. Yeah, like kind of, so there are a lot of things that are said and dramatized, and there are a lot of things that are kind of indicated, So, and I like the combination of those things. And I also really liked that kind of flow between the present and the past, between history and now, between generations, in Brazil. So I think it's a really great film.
Yeah, and the other thing I suppose I also like is that the title, in some ways you could see it as a letdown, that the title promises the secret agent, he's up to something, and we don't know for such a long time what he's up to and what his past is. And when you find out that he's someone who is genuinely this academic who had an argument with someone, and that's the reason he's being persecuted.
He's just pissed off a rich person.
He just pissed off a rich person, and you go, well, that's it? Like, I was expecting fucking James Bond here.
I know.
But the question then you're asking is, if there is a secret agent, who is the secret agent? And you can say, like, everyone has some sort of version of being related to that term. Everyone has some sort of secret and secret agenda about them. And, kind of the difference between the image the person that they are and the image that they're projecting for whatever reason. Kind of, it's a world in which no one, apart from, I suppose, the most powerful, because they can be so brazen about it, is honest about who they are. And even the most powerful aren't really honest about it. The newspaper still tells the stories of the human leg that came back to life and killed people. They're not saying, we're the police and we killed these people. You don't tell that truth. But it's just, it's like no one tells the truth here. No one is honest, and they have their different purposes for that.
Yes. Yeah. I think the other thing that I want to mention, because I have this prejudice, I think, in film with the visual, kind of with how things are filmed to symbolize or something, right? Like, but also, that it be done in a way that I consider kind of, I don't know, artistic or beautiful. And it made me think about that, this film, because, sometimes the power of an image is actually the concept. Yeah. I think I might have been saying this a bit lately. But in this film, the opening scene, the thing with the corpse that's rotting, right? And then the dogs coming to eat it, sniffing around it. That's such a powerful image, right? Like, it's such or it might be a very powerful concept or idea or symbol, because it's not particularly beautifully filmed in quotation marks, right? It's kind of almost like, the idea of it, right, and what it symbolizes in the film, that I think is kind of quite powerful, because it also has resonances later on with the sharks, and with the policemen as sharks, and with rich people as sharks, and all the corrupt people sniffing around the corpse, trying to get a bite, right? So it's a really arresting kind of initial kind of image, really. Anyway, I was very pleased to see such a good turnout. I've been dying to see it for ages. I think it's only just kind of come out in our part of the country anyway. And I hope it gets a good audience. It's been a huge success in Brazil, and also I think in France. So I hope it gets an equal success here.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it in financial terms, it seems to have cost $5 million equivalent of, and has made nearly 4 times that.
Okay.
Which, in terms of percentage increase is huge. In terms of, a worldwide smash, it is not huge, but that's good for this kind of film, and it's certainly getting the recognition critically and from the awards panels.
Yes.
I mean, to see it nominated for not just Best Foreign Feature, but Best Picture is huge.
It's huge. Yeah, so highly recommend.
Highly recommended, yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much for listening. We are Eavesdropping at the Movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.